This video is sponsored by the Scrapping Cottage, where CottageCutz are always blooming. Hey everybody, it's Janet with Sugarshine Designs here for CottageCutz to show you how to make a slider interactive Valentine's Day card. So to start with, I created a template which I ended up tracing and scanning into my computer as a PDF so that I could use this and make sure that everything worked properly. So what I did after that was printed that onto red cardstock and then cut it out carefully to remove all of the black around it, as well as cutting out the window well with my X-Acto knife. And this way then I knew for sure that my pieces would fit properly and work. I use this Doris embossing folder. It's got a bunch of Valentine conversation hearts, and I embossed part of the pull tab. And then I laid everything out and took a pencil and marked off the area where I'm going to need to provide a well for the slider to slide in. And to make that, I'm going to use strips of foam tape. And I use the thick foam tape and cut it just into strips, and then just basically followed the line that I had made with my pencil. And so the sides are going to be where the slider is going to fit at its widest point, and it won't move around too much from there. And down here at the bottom is kind of a bumper to stop the slider from going too far. Then up at the top part, we've got another bumper on each side, top and bottom, to stop it from going any further out of the card as well. Now this top piece of the template is going to go on the top, secured with additional foam tape, so that it hides the well system and the mechanism underneath, and then it gives you a nice area on top to decorate. Now I've got to put some additional foam tape to give the whole area support. So on each side, top and bottom of the pull part, as well as the top of the card and down at the bottom, I've added a little bit more foam tape, again just to give it some more stiffness and support, because when you're holding this card you're going to be pulling that pull tab and you want everything to be lifted up. I got everything the way I wanted it in terms of some additional foam tape, and so now I just started taking off all of the adhesive backing to the foam tape, and I will leave this mechanism in the well as I place the top piece over it. That's a key part. You must make sure that's in there, because once you've put this top piece over it with all the foam tape, you of course cannot get your pull tab out anymore. The slider is secured inside of that well. So it's time now to add some CottageCutz goodness to this card, and I'm going to start by showing you the Heartbeats die. This came out with a Good Friday release, and it has a large heart as well as a smaller heart attached to the heartbeat symbol. And for this card I'm going to detach the heart from the heartbeat, and I'm going to use that heart later. But for now, this is what I'm going to put inside of my window. And so what I want it to say then, of course, is "My heart beats for you." And it'll just say "My heart" until I pull the slider. Then I'm going to see the heartbeat symbol, and it's going to say "Beats for you." So I thought that was cute and a nice way to use this die. Now it's a very fine heartbeat symbol, so you could either cut this out with some sticky adhesive behind the paper, say like Stick It adhesive, so that you could treat it like a sticker, or you can glue it like I did. You're going to need a very fine needle nose type applicator though to work with such a fine piece. And this worked just great. I did need to push down that end piece a little more and make sure it was secure, because at first it was sticking or catching on my slider. But that fixed my problem, and now it worked quite well. So it's time to decorate the rest of it. What I used for a main piece here is a doily die called Time Doily. This is a 4x4 size doily, and I think it's just perfect for this kind of use. You'll see that I used the entire doily, but what I did first was just slice about 1/3 of the doily off, because I'm going to use the larger piece on the right side of the card and use a corner of it down at the left-hand corner and trim it to fit that. So it just sort of balances it off, and also this way you don't have to waste any of that pretty die, or very little of it, because I'm just cutting off the bottom corner of it more or less. What you do want to do though is make sure that your cut is straight and square, because otherwise it won't quite sit right. And you can do that of course by just making sure you pay attention when you use your your paper cutter. Now I've added some additional white borders here, and this comes from the Sweet Love Borders die set. There are 3 really cute borders here. I picked the one that's more lacy looking for my card. I cut out 3 of these because I am going to have to piece a little bit on the top and bottom to make it across the entire card. And I want to make sure that I tell you that this border piece is a nice length. It's 4.5 inches, but because my card is laying horizontally, my card is a little bit wider than that, so I've got to piece it just a little bit. But in the end, I will cover up that overlay where the 2 pieces meet to the point where it's really hard to identify that there was any kind of overlap there. And you'll see that at the very end, really, where I show the final pictures. So I had measured off kind of where the doily stopped so that I didn't have to waste any of the border underneath that. And then estimated here where the glue was going to be needed to extend to the edge of the card. And what I do here is, rather than cut and then try to glue, I glue and then cut. And then I find that, for me anyway, I make fewer mistakes this way because inevitably I will cut it differently than I try to put it on if I do it the opposite way, if that makes sense, and I'll end up short or something at the end. So that's why I do it this way. Now I'm doing the very same thing at the top, but this time I'm going to place all the way to the right, or excuse me, it'll be really to your left when you're looking at the card, when it's sitting in front of you properly, and then extending that second piece over, doing kind of similar what I did before, where I measured off how many of those little hearts I was going to need, or those scallops, and then set the border flush up against the other border, and then trim the difference so that it's nice and flush with the red top piece. Now that the border is done, I can place my doilies, and when I glue these in place, I just put the glue on the solid piece, or the non-lacy part of the doily, and that leaves the edges free. And I think that just looks a little bit more realistic, the way it sits up or curves up from the surface of the card a little bit. It's just my preference. You could glue the whole thing down if you'd like. But here you'll see that I am able to now get both of the doilies on, and I've got the base now for the rest of my decorating that I'm going to complete. Now it's time to bring back my 2 hearts, the larger heart and the smaller heart that I had before. And I'm going to put them on each side of the window. Now, to make them prettier and to give them some stronger support, I'm going to attach these glitterized foam pieces that happen to have adhesive backing on them already. And this will, again, make them prettier, but also give them more support so that when I hang the edge of each of these hearts over the window, it won't fold or drag into the window itself and cause the pull mechanism to get caught. So you'll see here I just attached those, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach them to the window with, again, just a little bit of the heart hanging off each side. Now the larger heart has that heartbeat symbol, so I'm going to make sure I glue it so that the symbol just keeps going on with the heartbeat that I've already attached to the window. So if you remember before, the die cut had the heartbeat symbol attached to the little heart, and now what I've essentially done is attach the heartbeat to the bigger heart, and then also the little heart by placing it next to it and overlapping slightly. And so now when I pull it, you can see that the heartbeat from the larger heart continues into the window, which I think is kind of cool. All right, so next we're going to show you how I made kind of a flower basically with these hearts. Using that die, I used pink glittered foam and cut 4 of these hearts out, and that's going to form a flower. I touched the hearts using glue dots, and this makes sure then that the foam stays in place. This particular foam that I cut out, for whatever reason, has glitter on both sides, and I found that to be kind of annoying because the glitter doesn't stay put the way it did on the red foam. But in any case, this then secures it tightly and makes sure that these hearts are not going to go anywhere. And you can see this forms the illusion of a blossom or a flower. Now on top of this I'm going to put a bow, and of course I use the Build-A-Bow from CottageCutz here. And this is what you get. You get a large bow and a small bow. And for fun, I tried, after I cut out the pieces, running these foam pieces through on the embossing folder here with the conversation hearts. It sort of worked. It got a little bit on there, but it didn't really work as well as I'd hoped, but it was something fun to try. So I'm going to show you now the finished product once I got everything done. And you'll see I have the little bow here on top of the little heart, and I've got all these little sequins and gems put in place, sprinkled all over the card. And now when you pull your tab, it says "My heart beats for you." Very cute. And then it still has a card interior to decorate if you'd like, and it's all done. Well, thanks so much as always for joining me today. If you liked my project, give me a thumbs up and give me a comment. Always love to see any comments you all have. And if you haven't subscribed, of course, please subscribe and get that done as well so you don't miss any of the projects. Well, I'll be back in about 2 weeks, so until then, happy Valentine's Day. Bye.